Come in. Right, so welcome back to Topley, and there's been a few changes on the layout since last time you saw it in our previous video. So I've started work on the new quarry scene for the layout, which is over on the back as part of the diversion route for the layout. And the main thing I've been doing is I've been working on the Walther's New River Mining Company buildings, which form the centrepiece of that quarry. Now, they're really designed to be a colliery type building, but instead I'm going to repurpose them and use them for a quarry scene to cover off the limestone type workings that happen in the Peak District, which is where Topley's set. So we're going to take over now, have a bit of a close look and show you what we've been doing. Okay, so since the last time when we showed you this, which was back in our July Hornby magazine show, and then we actually finished off the track layout here. We wired it all in so it all worked and everything, but none of these buildings that are just by me here, weren't here at that point. So obviously the buildings are being made, and I've adjusted the track layout as well to actually suit the 3-track layout of the Walther's New River Mining Company buildings here. I've also started to adjust around some of the buildings as well. So like the little engine shed there, which is the Dapple kit, I've moved that forward a bit, and I'm starting now to experiment with how all those pieces are going to fit together for this. The Walther's kit is an absolute dream to put together. It's a really nice kit, but I think actually to build the main structure of all the buildings that you see here, it took me about an hour and a half in total, which isn't bad when you consider it's a 6-storey building with a 3-track loading point through the bottom of it as well. Really simple kit to make. Just need a craft knife, some plastic liquid cement, and off you go. Chop away, stick parts together as shown in the instructions, and you'll get a really nice building out of that as well. Now, the only change I've made to the order of the instructions for the building was to not put the glazing in at the start of the build. And what they recommend is each time you start working on a panel of it, you should put the glazing in before you start gluing the building together. But because of the way I wanted to paint the building, I didn't want the glazing in at the start. So, yeah, so the building, to give it its finished look that it's currently got, which isn't its finished look, but it's raw painted state, is all done with Halford's grey primer. And that's why, again, I didn't want to put the windows in at the start of the build because I wanted to be able to spray paint the building. So I've made sure that I could do that afterwards. So. So the next steps for this then, I've got to put the glazing into the rear of the building here. Like I say, I've done the front, but I've got the back to do. And then after that, the building's got to come off the layout because I'm going to start weathering it to give it a much more realistic appearance for a set of quarry buildings. So that's all going to be done with weathering powders, which we'll do, like I say, off the layout so we don't make a mess of everything else that's here. So. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's I always wanted for a building for this layout, for this particular area, was something big. And that's one of the really impressive things about the Walther's kit. It is a big building. It's designed for the American outlines. It's actually an American style building, but I don't think it looks out of place at all in a British layout. And also, even though it is HO scale, because American stock is so much bigger as well, we've still got plenty of space to get stock underneath the loading points here as well, and it gives us something much more dramatic as well. And traditionally I found that with British plastic kits of buildings and things, they don't tend to be quite as big. I've used a few of the Walther's kits in the past, like for example we used the Grand Central Station building for Grosvenor Square. That makes the main station building outside of the station on that terminus layout. And we also used the Walther's cement works as well, and that's the backdrop to West Coast Cement. And again, in each one of those cases, we chose the Walther's range because the specific buildings we were looking for were big. We wanted that big structure, and it's something that makes a nice difference for me on a model railway, see something with some size. So the kit costs £59, and it's available through Gauge Master in the UK. And in that you get the full set of buildings. You get the main structure, the conveyor belt, and you also get the lorry vehicle loading structure at the back as well. Right, so at the moment it pretty much fits where it is, but it's a bit cramped in, as you can probably tell. So I've got some change I want to make to the scenery. So firstly, I want to extend all three of these sidings by about 3 or 4 inches. So that's going to mean cutting out a bit more of the hillside here. And then I was also going to cut back some of the hillside over this side. But allied to all this part of the build, I've also got a roadway that's going to come up from the other end of this section as well. And that'll climb up behind the railway, and then it's going to go across behind this structure as well. And I want to take that off into the hillside as well. So it's quite a bit of work to go into this to actually fit everything together. So the first step is probably to actually get the road surface cut and start bringing that into this seam. And then after I've done that, I can start looking at chopping back some of this. and we'll recover as much material as we can out of that for use elsewhere in the build. So obviously roads are normally a bit static with a model railway, so we tend to make a nice road surface, we'll plonk some Oxford die-cast vehicles on it and just walk away from it. Part of that comes from layout design sometimes as well. It's like the other roads on Topley, they don't really lend themselves to anything moving anyway, because they tend to go just straight across the middle of a baseboard and go from nowhere to nowhere. But in the case of this road, I actually want to go a bit of a step further with this. We're going to introduce the fallow car system onto it as well. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it'd be great when we've got cars going up and down here as well as having trains running as well. But it does mean I've got to make a small extension to the baseboard width at that end of the layout, where the railway comes out of the tunnel currently, so we've got a place for the cars to turn around. And similarly, like I mentioned with the road going up into here, what I want to do is hide a return loop for the cars up on top of the hillside here. But just to make that even more complicated, I've also got to leave access to these points down here for track cleaning as well. Because at all times, there's quite a lot of junction down there leading into the storage yard and also out onto the diversion route as well. So I've got quite a few little intricacies to work around on this to make all these things happen, so it'll be a long-term project, but we'll make it all happen in the end. So now I've explained the project to you and what we're going to do, I'm going to move on and start cutting the roadway for this section of the layout. So if you want to follow me, we'll come and have a look at what we're doing. Right, well, it's really not very warm in here today. Winter seems to have arrived early in our workshop, so I've got my jumper back on now. I refuse to walk around in a t-shirt today, it's too cold. But anyway, we'll get back to the layout and get moving with this. So in front of me here, this is the piece of Foamex, which is what I'm going to make the roadway out of. So the reason I'm using this is it's light, it's flexible, it's easy to cut as well, so it can make it really nice and easy to create the road shape for the layout. And also handy if I do make any mistakes, it's easy enough to just cut your piece out and get on with it again. So you'll find a lot of this kind of material. It's basically, this is a redundant piece of signage, actually from one of the Hornby magazine stands a long time ago. So it's just spare material that's been sat in our storage yard waiting to be used. So what I've done is I've marked out the rough plot of the road, and I've done that by taking measurements from the layout over there to give me the depth of how far back in I need the road to go. I'll give myself a bit of overlap at the front to compensate for where it's going to lead into the new extension of the baseboard as well. And then to get this ankle section over here done, what I've done is I've marked 10 centimetre marks along this piece of board. I've done the same on the layout as well. And then at every one of these 10 centimetre marks, I've measured from the edge of the baseboard, which is this line here, back to where the rear point of the road is going to be. And then the roadway is 9 centimetres wide all the way along. So then I've plotted 9 centimetres back from that all the way along, joined all those marks together, and that gives me the rough shape of the road to start off with. So now I've got all this marked out, we've got to get this cut and ready to go onto the layout. I'm going to see if this bit of road now fits onto the layout. Yeah, look at that. It's pretty good. So it's a couple of adjustments we've got to make that fit. But yeah, that's going to be roughly where the road goes. And it'll give us a nice roadway for the fallow vehicles to run up behind the railway, and they're going to go over a bridge just here as well behind the signal box. Well, I'll ease the gradient out. We can ease the gradient out like that, so it will come all the way up from the bottom there. And it won't be quite as high there either, because I've got to move this signal next. So that's the next thing I'm going to have to do. I'll drop that signal out and move it out of the way, and then we'll start making some supports to hold the bridge and this roadway in place then. So now I've got to a point where the roadway is cut, and I can start assessing what we need to cut away out of the original scenery from Topley Dale's hillside here to make all the roadway fit, and also to make the quarry scene here fit more comfortably into that as well. So basically there's two things I suppose I've got to do here. One, I've got to cut away the depth of the hillside here so we can get the road at a more realistic level. Because I want the road to be sort of roughly railway bridge height as it disappears up here. And then I'll use some of this landscape here to kind of hide that into the background. So this sort of disc-shaped section here as well will turn the cars round on the fallow road system. That will be nicely hidden down inside the hillside there. And then over this end here, like I said, I wanted to extend these 3 sidings just enough so I could probably get one more wagon beyond the quarry building. But to do that, I've got to cut away some of the landscape here as well. So I've got a bit of cutting here to do, and I've got to be careful I don't go in too far into that so we end up in the actual mainline railway that's running behind there as well. And then finally, there's another bit of cutting to do around here, although not as much as I actually was expecting, to be honest, which is going to be to take away some of this landscape here just to make it a bit more comfortable, get the quarry buildings in there and a nice rock face built in there as well. So that's the next step. I'm going to go and grab a saw and start hacking this scenery up. So as you can tell then through that clip, I've had a lot of fun making a mess here on the railway today. And actually, this is one of probably my favourite bits of modelling actually, is when you start to modify something, you get to what I call destructive modelling. So I've cut away all the landscape that I need to cut away. I've used a couple of my favourite tools as well, my double-sided saw and one of my chisels, and that made light work of cutting all these bits of polystyrene back to create the new areas we need. So the result is I've got space for the roadway to disappear into the hillside and have the turn back tucked inside above the railway there. And also got a bit extra space here for the scenery to go in behind the end of the sidings for the quarry area as well. And that also have a nice rocky feeling when it's finished. So next job I think is to go and tidy up. We need a bin bag and a vacuum cleaner by the look of it. Up. Good girl, hello. You survived the Hoover. Did you? It's a little treat to make it better. What do you think of it? Really? Is that all you've got to say? You're going to speak? Oh. Good girl. All gone. Okay, so I've cut the hill, tied it up, and I just thought I'd talk you through the overall plan, because the plan I've got for this is much bigger than what we can show you in this video here. So I haven't got time in the next couple of days to build this entire section of scenery the way I see it being finished. So what we're going to do, we'll get to a certain point and I'll explain all those bits that are going to go towards making the final scene. So the roadway that's coming up here, like you saw before, it's going to rise up and go across into the corner of the layout there. But as it rises up behind the railway here, it's going to be behind a stone wall, and then it will come across the railway on a bridge here, which I've got the bridge power puts for already. That will carry the road over the railway. Then the road will continue then across the back, and it's going to have I'll probably use this kind of stone frontage in front of the road there. And then one of the things I really want to do with the road is make sure it actually blends nicely into the area where it's going to have the turn back for the fallow road system in there. So I'll use some of these nice big trees from like the Hornby Scale Scenics range to be able to position around this area, so we actually create a nice screen to the road as it disappears into the hillside there. Then in front of that, to actually finish off the quarry scene area, that's all going to be this Woodland Scenics hydrocal rock scene all around there. So I've got a lot of different bits of rock to build up on there to finish off the actual scene there and bed all the building and the quarry scene into the railway there. So the overall thing should look really good. It's just going to take me a bit longer than a few minutes to finish it. So the next job is I'm going to put this tree down, because otherwise I've got to flap it around the camera. So the next job is going to be to actually set the road in position. So I'm going to do that by cutting some risers out of the same Foamex board. And we'll get that road set in position so it's coming up and over the railway here, and send it all off over into the corner there. We'll see how that's going to look. So I'm now going to just temporarily put the bridge parapets into place. Now, one of the problems I have just noticed is that I've got no baseboard to support them here. So this one's going to go at the wrong end of the bridge, if you like. So I'll move that right down there. And then this one will be going onto this side of the bridge to create the other side when we come to assemble it all. A little bit like that. So now what I need to do is build all the supports underneath the roadway to bring it up to the right height to go across these. Sticking together a couple of pieces of Foamex now so we can make a support for the roadway, because I think one piece on its own probably wouldn't be quite enough. So laminate a couple of pieces together using Gorilla contact adhesive. So once I've got the basics of road structure in place, I'll probably come back and add some more supports to it. It's just these initial two will get me set up and heading in the right direction. So then to make sure everything stays where I want it to do, I've cut some triangular supports as well, which will chock each piece of support in place underneath the road. So now I'm going to glue the first of these supports in place underneath the road, using the same glue as before. So I want the first one roughly there. The weight of the road will just hold that in place for the moment. I said use these triangular supports, so a line of glue down each side of these. It's got another one of the supports to go in there, and that triangle will help to keep the support for the road in the right place and at the right angle. Alright, so now I've got that first one in place. I'm going to put another one in place over here as well. Okay, so now I've got the first supports of the road leading up to the bridge. I now need to make some extra ones to go behind the parapets as well to give them a bit more strength as well, where the road starts across the top of the bridge there. So this is the same method I used for the previous ones, apart from this time I've got a single piece of Foamex for the backing to where the bridge parapets are going. I haven't worried too much about precision cutting it or anything. It's just a chunk of the Foamex cut to roughly the right shape. And then the final dressing when I make the actual bridge parapets is what will make this look nice as the road passes through here. So, right, so I've also just realised I've got a bit of tidying up to do here as well, because I've got some stuff in my own way. So I always said with modelling like this, it's not about precision creating a structure like this, it's about creating something that's going to hold up what you need it to hold up, because all the precision and finishing comes from the actual dressing it up with the final brick layer and stuff like that as well, which will make it actually look like a bridge. But all this will be hidden ultimately behind things like this section of plastic card here, so I don't worry about it. I've cut the track back for the engine shed line, and then just to get an idea of how it's going to look, place the building back over the top of there. One thing I might do a bit later on in the build is I might actually bring that back another couple of inches and just take a couple of track pins out to slew that a bit further across, because it'll give it a bit more space from the main buildings here as well. But what I'm going to do now, I could put a couple of supports in here for the road, and then we can see if it actually works then. So some of the polystyrene we cut away earlier, not going to go to waste, because we're going to use it to make the supports for the road as it goes along here. So we've got to approach the height of two of these blocks. So again, it may look a little bit Heath Robinson at the moment, but it'll all look good in the end. So we're going to return all the buildings now to where they came from on the layout. Then we can see a couple of trains running, see if we can get that valid car going past as well temporarily. So no one will know the van have fallen off, will they? So I'm quite happy with how this is progressing now. Like I said a few minutes ago, I've still got so much more to do to this to bring it all together. And for one thing, I've got a load of casting to do to make all the rocks to go around the rock face here. But already even the bare polystyrene there, with that little bit of extra depth and the cut out into the hillside, actually gives it a little bit more interest there as well in the background. It does mean that I can extend a couple of sidings just by 2 or 3 inches, but it's enough to just give a little bit more flexibility there and a bit of variation over the end of the siding length as well, just something I think is quite nice in that kind of context. So Then the roadway, well, I think the roadway is going to look magic when it all works. Again, like all this, there's so much to do, but I'll get there one day, so keep watching, we'll show you.